गुड आफ्टरनून फिरोज, अ वेरी वार्म वेलकम। मंगलवार है तो बाजार में पूरा मंगल ही चल रहा है। निफ्टी बैंक 880 पॉइंट्स हायर, 52,591, a roaring record high on mid caps, small caps, auto index, you name it, it's at a record high. The Nifty also at a record high. What do you think is the sentiment on the Dalal Street, and what is driving this market?
Well, like you said, markets have reached the new peaks again. The sentiment is of course good. It's a Tuesday. सब कुशल और मंगल है ऊपर वाले की दया से. But very importantly, I was one of the people who on the election day said that the markets will be very buoyant. Because everybody had gone, FI has gone very light during this election. I think a large portion of the last rally has also been short covering. That's my point, which I'm trying to make. See, the June futures of Thursday, which is the day after tomorrow, were quoting at a discount. Today, they are at a premium. So all these shorts are being covered. Unlike what the expectation was, if BJP doesn't come to a majority by itself, markets will correct. That was the expectation. So the shorts were not covering their positions, hoping that after the Prime Minister take oath, there would be some degree of correction. I think now in the last 2-3 days, they're actually unwinding their shorts, is why June futures has come back to premium. So that's point one. Point two, I personally think the earnings of Nifty, which people are not enough speaking about, 960 rupees, 65 rupees was the estimate. But I think the last year has closed at 1,040 rupees of earnings of Nifty companies. That's from 820 rupees. Of course, Axis bought the consumer business. If you remove that one-time loss from 840 rupees of Nifty earnings to 1,045, that's a good 25% growth in Nifty earnings, which people have hardly spoken about. Of course, prices are very optically visible to naked eye. Earnings are not, but we have to keep track as analysts. That Nifty has surprised and given a Nifty earnings in 4 digits, first times ever in any financial year. So I'm reasonably happy that सब कुछ एक साथ आ रहा है. All stars are coming together in terms of liquidity, in terms of fundamentals, in terms of sentiment. So far, that's where you see Nifty closing, inching towards 23,700.
Without further ado, one or two funds that you think will make sense even at these elevated levels to put money in at current prices?
Yes, if I have to give you a couple of funds, I of course have to start with something which has a larger portion in large caps. So I would still say HDFC Flexi Cap, which has been your favorite fund as well. And so is it mine, and it continues to be a value-based principle. So I think HDFC Flexi Cap can be bought even at these stages of the market because it has larger portions in large cap, and large caps have pleasantly surprised in the earnings. And I think the Nifty earnings are expected to be almost 1,150 for the next year. So I think that's one fund you can surely look at. In the small cap space, I will give you a little offbeat fund, which is an Invesco small cap fund, which is managed by Tahir Badshah himself. It's a smaller fund in a small cap space, especially where the markets are elevated in the small cap valuation side. Agility is going to be very important. A large fund is going to find it very difficult to move across stocks. That's why an Invesco small cap, keeping in mind the elevated valuations in the small cap space, especially in few counters. These are the two funds which a person can definitely make staggered or even lump sum purchases as long as the investment timeframes are greater than 5 years plus.
Okay, so these are the two funds that we've discussed earlier as well. Feroze, coming to this issue of staggered SIPs and of course a monthly input into savings, even at current levels, not only prices but valuations are very, very elevated. Yet people come on a regular basis to ask, क्या है lump sum डाल दें? There is this fear of missing out, this extreme need to do something constantly in the market, and I'm sure a lot of new customers who reach out to Anand Rathi Wealth are also afflicted with this problem. How are you dealing with it?
Yes, so we have institutionally have a process to answer this question, because this is a very frequently asked question to you, to a fraternity like mine, who are any stakeholder gets this question, पैसे एक मुश्त डालूं या स्टैगर करके डालूं? तो इसके लिए हमने एक इंस्टीट्यूशनल समाधान निकाला जो मार्जिनली ज्यादा करेक्ट है। इसका आंसर तो किसी के पास होता है नहीं, तो हमने we've always tried to compute what is the fair value of Nifty at any points in time with our method. The fair value of Nifty, as per us today, looking at the current earnings, is all. If you look at earnings of the next year, 1164 is our estimate. So the fundamental level should be almost about 1,000 points lower, 900 points lower than where we are trading. 22,800, 22,800 is the fundamental level, give or take. Okay, there's no right answer to that. So since the markets are greater than 22,800, we propose staggering generally for larger monies. If the markets come below 22,800, then we automatically tell people to पूरा पैसा एक साथ लगा दीजिए. So if the current market level is greater than the fundamental level, we ask people to stagger. If it comes below our estimate of the fundamental level, we ask them to put lump sum. Having said which, जैसे आपने कहा कि valuations are elevated, Shail ji, last year, exactly 1 year back, Nifty was at 18,600 or 691 to be precise, exactly a year back. And it's gone up about 27% from there on. And the good news is earnings have also gone up 25%. That's the great news. So 1 year prices moved 25, 26%, and earnings have also moved 25, 26%. So fundamentals have caught up, and that's where the forward P, according to us, is 19.6 for the subsequent year for Nifty.
So this overvaluation and undervaluation of the Nifty around 22,800 obviously is a moving target. Just as the Nifty rises or falls, you also adjust this level. Am I right?
We adjust the fundamental levels with earnings. So as per our next year's earning estimate, 1164 को अगर 20 गुना से multiply करो, 20 being the fair P forward, then you get the 22,800 level. Okay. So once the next quarter results come, we will revise the fundamental Nifty level or price, fair price, according to the earnings move. So every quarter it changes.
Okay, so this value remains constant for 3 months, just as the Nifty earnings get updated on every quarter. This number changes. Is that the understanding?
Yes, sir. This is the precise understanding. Of course, there is no sanctity, exact sanctity that 22.
Now this is something new that I have learnt, and okay, this is something new that I have learnt, and Feroze being one of the most caring sharers of information, I am sure he'll keep me updated on the quarterly change of Nifty's, how should I say, a basic valuation structure. Feroze, the other issue in the market at this juncture is this sectoral NFOs. I remember discussing with you HDFC Defence Fund about 6.5 months earlier, and what a fabulous ride it has been. 10 rupees is now 24 rupees. 140% return in 6 months, and we are talking about a fund. So that's the rally, ladies and gentlemen, that has come in. At the same time, we also have Motilal Oswal AMC's Defense Index Fund. Would you be having a view on this NFO?
I think defense is a little overdone, in my opinion. So I would say the timing of the HDFC fund was just impeccable. When it came to the defense fund. So like you rightly said, बहुत सारे NFOs आ रहे हैं, and I think Motilal Oswal Defense Index Fund, I would say an index fund restricts a fund manager to invest in all good, bad, ugly stocks, because valuations are so elevated. Fund manager's responsibility shifts from return to risk. I think index do a not such a good job in terms of eliminating those really expensive ones, because indices are created on a growth momentum basis. जितना अच्छा चलेगा उतनी ज़्यादा weightage मिलेगी, उससे ज़्यादा और पैसा आएगा. So it is like a winding cycle. So I personally think at higher levels, a fund manager's role is to reduce risk. So buying an index fund at higher levels, especially a specific sector, if not, as narrow as defense, is something which I would be skeptical given the valuation, because all stocks, and especially those which are high valuation stocks, will get larger weightages because indices are created on growth principle.
Fair point. And just to highlight this this frenzy that we are seeing in the markets, Feroze, as far as defense is concerned, today is the day for Garden Reach Builders, 16.5% higher. It's changed a digit. 2040 is the price for Garden Reach, and so far 2,771 crores worth of transactions have happened. We still have 1 hour to go, and this is one of those 5 stocks within the PSU defense space. Each of them have Feroze picked up a day which they like, and one of them on a daily basis gives you double-digit returns. So you can well imagine the frenzy that is there for defense counters, and therefore the launch of this fund. Very well put. So valuations look over elevated, and of course defense looks a bit overdone in the short term. Feroze, where in the overall equity fund space do you see value? A lot of people are now focusing on balanced funds because they expect interest rates to come out, and typically SEBI allows a lot of balanced funds to have a 35% equity component, a 65% debt component. Where, according to you, is money headed over the next 2 or 3 months to pick up value?
Shelji, firstly, the statement which you made, debt has a possibility of interest rate correction. I concur with you. The short end of the yield curve can come down. The average difference between 10-year GSEC and repo rate has been more than 1.25%. Today there is hardly any difference between repo rate and 10-year GSEC. 10-year का पैसा भी Indian government 7% पे उठा रही है, right? That's the yield of a 10-year paper. Repo is also at 6.5. So after COVID, only the short end of the yield curve has gone up. Repos have gone up, but the long end of the yield curve has remained almost static. So 1 साल का पैसा का भी ब्याज उतना ही है, 10 साल के पैसे का भी ब्याज उतना ही है, 15 दिन का पैसा जो रेपो रेट होता है वो 6.5 का है. So India is first time seen such a flat yield curve. अगर RBI ब्याज दरें घटाएगी भी तो बॉन्ड होल्डर्स को पैसा बनने की गुंजाइश कम है, because they didn't lose money when interest rates went up. They may not make as much money as what the market is expecting when interest rates cycle turns, because the 10-year GSEC has not gone up like the repo rate has. If you look at 2 years back, the 10-year GSEC was at 6.8, today it's at 7. So it's not lost money for bondholders. So it's unlikely that the lower interest rate cycle will make money for long end of the yield curve bondholders.
Okay, how about arbitrage and hybrid funds? They have a new set of investors which are now preferring arbitrage over the earlier lovers of bond funds. What is your view on these new arbitrage funds which are now dominating the SIP variety as also lump sum investments?
Shelji, I think arbitrage fund is the right thing you're highlighting to your viewer. Arbitrage funds have this huge tax efficiency, but their behavioral patterns in terms of risk return are closer to debt, but from a taxation standpoint, they are equity. So even if you invest for 15 days, 1 month, 2 months, you get only 15% short-term capital gain, whereas debt fund की taxation में तब्दीली आ गई थी और उसमें marginal tax rate लगता है. So arbitrage fund has the tax efficiency currently. Make hay when the sun is shining. If you have short-term monies, arbitrage funds are unlikely to lose you money. Even if you have 3-month money, an arbitrage fund can do justice to it and beat a liquid fund post-tax, especially given the tax differential for a person in the highest tax bracket. So arbitrage fund is useful for most of us because we have some money lying around in bank accounts, for our emergency funds and stuff. arbitrage funds is a better mechanism to park short-term liquid funds. But I think Indian retail has this tendency to chase performance. So small cap funds will still continue to get money. And I think SIP of 4-5,000 crores, which is going
Yes.
into small cap stocks, should continue.
Absolutely. They remain, how should I say, the magnet and the lightning rod on top of Bombay Stock Exchange's building for attracting investors of all hues. We'll be shortly showing you the data on Invesco India Small Cap Fund, which was just highlighted by Feroze, and its fund manager, Mr. Tahir Bhadsha, has often graced our channel, just as Feroze does once a month. And again, one of the finest portfolios that one could look at, very, very liquid. In fact, Invesco Small Cap Fund was the top performer in that SEBI exercise, which was done to see the liquidity risk of the portfolio. So keep that in mind when you look at Invesco. We'll just show you the net asset value for Invesco for the direct route is somewhere like 42 rupees. We'll be shortly showing you that data. Feroze, coming to one more part of the market which is showing some signs of regulatory activity, which is the SEBI action that has happened on Quant AMC. How are you as a mutual fund manager for large ultra HNIs navigating this path? What are you telling investors who have money in Quant scheme, especially the small cap fund, to do?
Shail sir, the good part of a mutual fund investor is he does not have to react on a news so clearly. See, if there is a stock in news, the stock corrects in price the same day. And I'm sure we've seen several instances of regulatory actions on several businesses, and their impact seamlessly flow on the same day and the subsequent trading days. And most of these stocks where there is a regulatory intervention come on the lower circuit. But since a mutual fund investor does not invest in the company, but invests in the shares bought inside the portfolio, you don't have to act on investigation. You have to act when the investigation completes. That's the fundamental principle. Unless there is a huge liquidity crisis, then you don't want to be the last person holding the pillow. So point one I'm trying to make is that since it's a mutual fund, the performance of the fund does not depend on the regulatory action, depends on the underlying stocks, which is not Quant as an AMC. You don't own that AMC. They are the manager of the money, not the ultimate beneficiary of the money which you have put into them. That's point one. Point two, of course, there could be several people, sentiment gets dampened, people redeem money. Our estimate, which we do mathematically, Quant must have lost about 600-700 crores yesterday because of the sentiment out of the 90,000 crores, which I think is still less than 1%. If there was a 10% outflow liquidity crisis yesterday, then my narrative would have been that you please stay on the sidelines, remove your money. But we keep a very close watch in situations like this. I don't think Quant has lost more than 1% of its assets after this news has broke out. And we have a mathematical formula, we compute this for schemes. That's point two. Point three, in my opinion, an asset management company was delivered performance. Of course, the watchdog as a regulator is awake. So I, as a mutual fund investor or a distributor, feel extremely comforted that my regulator is watching out for me. That's why a great performing asset management company is also being investigated for something. So I feel very comforted that my regulator is awake and taking care of my interest, my clients' interest, and all investors' interest, especially the retail ones. So reinforces that mutual fund is the most regulated platform for common investing.
Okay, I think that's a wonderful response to a crisis that is on the radar of many investors. Remember, Quant's schemes in the small cap, mid cap, large cap space have the pole position over the last many quarters, and this regulatory action, the search and seizure that has happened in Quant's two offices, in Mumbai and in Hyderabad, plus at some brokers level, has put in a distressing note for investors, and Feroze's advice is absolutely perfect. In fact, Quant Mutual Fund, in its response to SEBI's search and seizure, has said that it's cooperating and that all is well. Feroze, Sakshi is joining us. I'm sure she has a lot of questions to you. Sakshi, good afternoon. A very warm welcome. Nifty 152 points higher, and Nifty Bank just taking it away 835. Do you have any queries for Feroze?
Good afternoon, Shell, and good afternoon, Feroze. As always, what a great day to welcome Feroze as he's with us on another record day for the markets. The Nifty Bank, Sensex, the midcap index, all of them are in fine shape. And of course, the Sensex now nearing its 78,000 milestone. The Nifty also at 23,700 odd. So we are just little while away from that 24K that we've been looking at. Ab ki baar 24,000. That's something we started off by saying when the elections were still due. Feroze, is that going to happen? I'm sure that you would remember that we were discussing this right when the elections were in the offing, and we had spoken to you that time too.
Yes, Sakshi, I think this was your phrase, which you coined, "Ab ki baar 24,000." I think that was very, very innovative phrase, and I very clearly recollect you having said it when we were at 22,000, 22,000, 23,000 kind of levels, sub 23,000 levels for sure. In my opinion, I think these are all psychological levels, but I'm very positive for this financial year for Nifty. Given the kind of earnings which have come up, and that's what Shail sir and me were discussing with our viewers. So I think that 24,000 is very likely, given the fact that I have tracked one data which has always, or not always, at least for the last 2 years, given the right signs for 10 times out of the 11 I have tracked it. So I think that's the FII long short data in the index futures. Anytime it goes 80% or above on one side, the market starts moving on the other side. So today we are almost at an equilibrium. The FII long short data on index futures says 50-50, close to 50-50. So I think markets are not overbought or oversold, at least from a short-term standpoint, because this variable has said it right for 10 out of the 11 times in the last 2 quarter years when I've tracked it very mathematically. So I think 24,000 is very likely. But I'm reasonably confident that the market is going to be buoyant. On 4th June also, I said this at 21,200 levels when people started predicting that markets are now going to be a falling knife. But I don't think that would happen. So I think markets are going to be buoyant is one conclusion which I can reasonably make with a high odds. Now, 24,000 definitely is something, and Sakshi, I think aapke muh mein ghee shakkar, that phrase which you have said should become true sooner than later is my perception as well.
So, Feroze, we're just about less than a month away from that big bank union budget. Do tell us what are your key expectations this time around. Should the markets have elevated expectations from the budget, or should we simmer down some of those expectations?
See, I think budget has 2, 3 important heads under which you can create expectations. And I generally think that the economic expectations will be met. The expenditure expectations will be met. But when you speak of individuals like you and me, we have generally expectations from the income tax slabs and all these which actually matter to our lives directly and not indirectly. So I personally think in the second head, I don't think I would expect too much. Any changes in taxation, direct taxation would be unfair to expect, because in India, even if I earn 15 lakhs, which is 7 times my per capita income as a country, I can end up paying only 10% tax, which is the lowest in the top 5-7 economies. 15 लाख की अगर कोई पगार ले और नई टैक्स रिजीम में फाइल करे तो 10% की टैक्स आती है. That's 7 times our per capita income. So I think expecting anything further on reduction on direct taxes is unlikely. But one expectation from an income investment taxation perspective, I think the capital gain head requires huge amount of simplification. Corporate tax is simplified, direct tax is simplified. The capital gain tax is one of the most complex heads with 3 dimensions of different assets, different time frames, and STT and non-STT. I think that simplification is on the cards. May not happen in this maiden budget of this government, but should happen in this term, is my expectation. That's on the 3 heads, my take, Sakshi, right or wrong.
Okay. Feroze, we've managed to pull out the two graphics that of the funds that you had mentioned, HDFC FlexiCap, right there in front of you. 1942 is the net asset value, and Sakshi, these short-term painful choices on what tax slab you are and how much tax should you be paying is one of those niggling points which never get solved. One must focus on creating long-term wealth. HDFC FlexiCap has an asset under management of 53,000 crore rupees. I remember buying it personally for 14 rupees. The net asset value is 1942 rupees now. आप ले लीजिए टैक्स आपको जितना चाहिए, but the kind of wealth that has been created is phenomenal, and our job as market watchers and Feroze's job as suggesting great places to invest money should be followed upon. बाकी क्या टैक्स है, everything will be worked out. और मतलब this is up 125 times. इसमें से थोड़ा टैक्स दे भी दिया तो क्या बुरा किया. Ditto for Invesco, one of the finest small cap franchises we have. I think 42 is the net asset value for Invesco. This is a slightly older value that is there in front of you, but nevertheless, two great funds by our friend Feroze, and as always, it's a wonderful chatting with you. Thank you, Feroze, for being with us, and we'll again bother you when we meet for the national budget. Just a point that I wanted to make. The last time when Feroze came and he suggested HDFC FlexiCap fund, the net asset value was 1742. Today that he's come, it's 1945, 1946. In a span of less than 2 months, that's the progress of a fund. Forget an individual stock. Thank you, Feroze.